Hey there, guys. This is John Lee. I am the host of a new podcast series called Shoe Rack, and this is my first ever episode. Before we begin the first episode, I kind of wanted to give you all a brief understanding of what Shoe Rack is about. Shoe Rack is a podcast where I want to understand what it's like to walk in other people's shoes. Each person has a different pair of shoes. Each pair of shoes kind of serves a different purpose. So I wanted to gather stories from these people so I can understand their walks of life better and how that ultimately enriches the community that they're a part of. During my time knowing Dennis, our first guest, I got to see a lot of that firsthand, where he provided a lot of richness in understanding anime community and the gaming community, not just as a fan, but also as someone that wants to create community, wants to start a business, and now with Gamers Heaven Bay Area, he succeeded. This podcast episode is in conjunction with the launch of Gamers Heaven Bay Area, and I just wanted to say a huge congratulations to him and the team. What they've done is incredible, and I can't wait to see what they have in store for us. To celebrate this milestone, I wanted to provide him a platform for him to kind of speak his heart on why he wanted to create Gamers Heaven Bay Area and all the challenges that it took to get there, all the motivations it took to get there, and all the things that perhaps people like you and me might not quite see. So without further ado, why don't we tune in to today's episode? Hey y'all, welcome to the first ever episode of this podcast. I'm your host, John Lee, and I'm joined today with a lovely guest from the anime community. It's my good friend and small business owner, Dennis Yu.
Hey, what's up, guys? How you all doing?
Sweet. The objective of the podcast today is we kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about what he does as a small business owner, what he does as the franchise owner, the creator of a particular Bay Area branch of his company, and also the various different kind of challenges and tasks and things he has to worry about as a small business owner within this community. So first, Dennis, why don't you take it away a little bit more and tell us a little bit more about what you do and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, boy. Okay, so I grew up in a log cabin. No, just kidding. First of all, thank you for having me on. I think this is a lot of fun as a project to think through how the various aspects of a community can come together. It's a great opportunity, I think, for us to kind of think through all of the different sides of the world. Think about all of like the many different paths that get people to this place. So kind of taking a page out of like that notion of walk in someone else's shoes. Like we want to be able to kind of think through like, okay, like what does it take to be a cosplayer? What does it take to be an influencer in this space? And like, what does it take to be someone who is an artist?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I think like for me, I actually am pretty new into the anime scene. I only got into it because my wife was a cosplayer, and I think it's only been 3 years since I've been kind of involved. And I actually met you, Dennis, like 2 years ago. You were originally a photographer when I first met you during COVID, and now you kind of pivoted to something else. And then during my initial time of anime, it was like I was mostly just a con goer. My wife, girlfriend at the time, was a cosplayer, so kind of understanding what that entails, and there's a lot for me to kind of just understand and learn about what kind of responsibilities and what grabs their time. And then they interact with photographers and like where does that all go?
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting because often when I hear some of her friends and my friends in the anime community that I've built, you often hear just like conversations about like, why did X or Y do certain things, or why did A and B do something to C and D? Either something with like shoots having problems, or maybe like not quite understanding why a photographer did something this way versus another way, or maybe why Artist Alley doesn't take in certain people, or why Artist Alley sells certain things, or why small business owners sell certain things. So all these conversations, I just felt like it would be a good idea to have me kind of listen and hear a little bit more from everyone else, and like, oh, I am actually pretty new to this community. Maybe anyone else is listening in that's not a part of this community or has been part of the community for a long time can get an understanding as well on fields that they're not quite experts in.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's funny, right? Because like I think about how I fell into this community in the first place, right? Which is like I think back to when I first started watching anime, which was back in the days of like YouTube wasn't even purchased by Google at the time. You were searching for like Naruto season 1 episode 3 part 72.
Yeah,
right?
that's crazy.
Because like YouTube was like only doing like 5-10 minutes at a time. So I grew up in that world, right? Like I
Right.
grew up in the you wake up at 7 a.m. to watch like the latest 4Kids edition of Pokemon. I only had a handful of friends that were into anime at the time, and so for all intents and purposes, it was like actually very much like a solo endeavor. But I distinctly remember watching Cartoon Network, watching Toonami, seeing like it was like this essentially like the same 3-4 animes at the same time. It was like Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Inuyasha, Yu Yu Hakusho. It's funny because like I used to go to Chinatown to like get like bootleg
Yeah.
DVDs, right?
Yeah.
And like that's how I got my anime content. And
Right.
like I knew nothing about like the convention scenes. I knew very vaguely about the New York Comic Cons of the world, the San Diego Comic Cons. But what
Yeah.
I didn't realize was that there was like this like whole undercurrent of all of these like different gatherings and whatnot that you could actually attend and share with other people. So it's actually kind of interesting to me now that I'm older and looking back, and I'm like, oh, that didn't actually have to be this like solo endeavor of like trying to find new animes to watch. And I could have actually like found more friends probably during that time. I mean, not that I was like devoid of friends, but like I ended up going into other interests because I didn't find like the right critical mass of people
I
to
see.
enjoy
Yes.
anime with.
Yes.
So I ended
Yeah.
up going off and like watching other things. It wasn't until COVID that I was just like, all right, I guess I got a ton of time on my hands. I'm gonna go rewatch some
Yeah.
stuff, and then so
Dude.
I started watching, and then at the same time, I had gotten into photography, and I didn't get into photography because of anime, but I got into photography around the same time, and I vaguely knew about cosplay because my sister was a cosplayer, so I understood the craftsmanship that went into it and the effort, frankly, that would go into that sort of stuff. But I wasn't part of that world yet. Fast forward to 2021. It's a year after COVID. Everyone's starting to get their shots. Everyone's starting to come out of their metaphorical shell. And I remember hearing about Fanime for the first time. And I'm like, oh, it's kind of like New York Comic Con. I had been to New York Comic Con a few times. I cosplayed myself. So I fell into this world almost accidentally because it was just like one thing led to another, and I just like kept shooting cosplays, and I kept really enjoying getting into like these storylines and these series. Also the why behind people were like, oh, it's like I love this particular series. I have cosplayed, like I am going to be the best Sailor Venus that I can possibly be. I realized that there were more people out there that had that level of like fandom. I guess that's probably the best way to put it. Like that right level of fandom that I'm like, oh, this is kind of nice. Like I actually like doing all this stuff with these people. And so that's kind of like how I kept going forward into it and realizing that now is the time that like all the things that I thought that were like niche are now becoming like a little bit more accessible and a little bit more like regularly accepted. If I think about that, like that pathway back into anime, it was something that was a very formative part of my childhood. Went away for a while and then came back with a vengeance because like now I'm like fully invested in it, right?
Yes.
Like I ended up doing a lot in terms of like cosplay photography. Really enjoyed it, and I think now come to enjoy shooting for myself. When I think about like the friends that I've met through this like anime community, it's truly from like all walks of life. That's more or less like that's kind of like where like I've started to come to like really appreciate the anime community. We can all come together for an appreciation of like this is what we're here for like this like 72 hours of time. All we're talking about is like this like one shared interest, and then we all go back to our like different worlds, so to speak. Like it's kind of like an isekai. That's really cool to me. There's multi-dimensionality to like the community that we have.
It's very rare, I think, to see people from all walks of life come to enjoy something together. I feel like a lot of, maybe this is my experience, I think a lot of hobbies I see tend to grab a certain demographic, but like in the anime community, you've got people, our teachers, the baristas, the real estate agents, all these kind of things. And then like when we were able to talk about life and we were talking about like what are the things that we're going through when we get deeper into just the hobby and into like, the interpersonal connections and stuff. It's super interesting to hear a lot of life that I haven't experienced yet, and like kind of the wisdom that you get from various walks.
When you think about like how friends are made, growing up, your friends in high school are by virtue of proximity. Sure, there's a very good chance that some of them will stay with you for life. You hear that all the time, like, oh, high school sweethearts, getting married, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
right? Like you hear about those things. For some of us, we go to college. For those of us who go to college, we have the structure of school, clubs and classes. Or even if you don't go immediately to college, like how do you find friends? And you find friends through like shared hobbies, shared activity, or third spaces or the lack thereof. So you find those sorts of friendships just by virtue of like frequency of meeting these people, and then like also just shared identity. The number of friends I've met at like random anime conventions and then ended up like staying in touch with them afterwards is actually far higher than I ever expected. Like I met you and your wife at a what was it, like a photo shoot?
It's a random photo shoot,
Yeah.
very random cosplay gathering. I think I was wearing like Okabe from like Steins Gate or something.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm not a really big cosplayer, but it's
Yeah.
like super easy.
I
Yeah.
just remember walking up to the two of you because I think you guys look really calm, and I was just like, yeah, and
that's so funny.
and to anyone who has ever been to a cosplay photo meetup, like knows what I'm talking about, when everyone is running around doing everything, and
It's pretty hectic.
you two were just chill, and so it was really nice being able to walk up to you, have like a proper conversation, and then be like, hey, can I take your photo because I like your cosplays? Like that always struck me as like an interesting thing that like I look back on. I'm like, it's funny how like these friendships form, because like then afterwards, like we ended up finding more things that we had in common. We could talk about philosophy and be in a position of respect of like, hey, like there are things that we have like very differing views on, but like there's a certain level of respect that goes into it, right?
Yeah. I will say, I think I resonate a lot with the idea of seeing friends or just being surprised by having friendships that last for a long time, even if like cons are the only place that you've seen them, or anime being kind of like the central point of interest, right? Or the central common point. So I actually, like, my wife and I joke about this a lot, where I feel like I made my first like real like con friends earlier this year. And I think I've actually seen
Oh,
them.
yeah.
Yes, like I remember it was ALA of 2024. Wackiest year. It was so crazy. Usually I go to these cons, I'm like not, I like it. It's like fun, right? It's like a great shopping. I picked up some card games just so I can play around in them, but like usually like after a day or so I get kind of bored and I'm like, okay, I don't really cosplay. I kind of exhausted all the Artist Alley and Exhibit Hall, so I'm not really sure what to do now. But I think this year, like I remember encountering some cosplayers who had like the bravery to ask us for a picture. We were cosplaying from Attack on Titan. And it turns out that brief little like connection turned out to be like a friendship where we would basically just stick with each other the entire con. We were so connected that I think at the end of the con, first we got dinner together like twice, and then at the end of the con we all went to karaoke together because it's like, oh, like this is a magical weekend, like we all had a really good time. And I actually think during those conversations, like we moved past the anime interest. We moved into, I learned that these people cared a lot about their friends, and they also had like a friend group that they manage, and it's like, oh, they care a lot about how do we make sure people in our friend group get along? How do we make sure people from various different friend groups all get along? And that was like a really riveting conversation. We probably talked for like an hour and a half on this. But yeah, it's a shame because I wish they live far away, right? That's the thing with cons. Like you got people from all over, even the nation sometimes coming in. So you might meet someone that's like super dank, super cool, but you know, I've seen them a grand total of like 3 or 4 times. I still think they were like one of my greatest friends, and I treasure them immensely. And every time I have the opportunity to visit them, I will. But I wish we had the ability to just kind of like connect more on a more frequent basis to kind of keep that fire going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, yeah, I would feel the same way. Actually, watching you with those friends, it like you can tell, right? Like there are some people where like when you meet them, it just clicks. I think that, and I think that's part of the reason why I started moving, like trying to find like new ways to kind of like group people together. And it's some ways through photography, it was actually really nice to be able to kind of like work with people and like meet people in actually a very personal way, because like there's this thing in like photography where like you try to actually like get to know them as you're taking their photo. There's taking a photo, and then there's fully laying out the scene. And part of this is, yeah, like they are playing a character, and like you want to bring that character to life, but then there's also a person behind that too, and you want to be able to make sure that like you understand like why they are trying to portray that character as well. Sometimes it's truly just like, I just like the character, and like that's perfectly fine. But then there are some people that like the character actually like truly does mean something to them, and you want to make sure that like that is properly represented in the composition, right? And so being able to have like those like deeper conversations, it's hard to do that in like a 72-hour time span of a convention, right?
Yeah.
Like there are only so many hours. There's only so much that you can do within that time frame. And so what I started realizing is that I was like, okay, like if the thing that I want is to have these sorts of connections with people, then photography is great for that. It's very one-to-one. It's very deep.
Right.
But then I won't necessarily be able to have the same level of like, oh, I want to meet people. But then also on the flip side, it's like within that compressed time frame, I can't also help other people meet people that might be interesting, right? Like by sheer happenstance, you happen to find a group of people that you genuinely enjoy. And like that's just like the randomness of life.
Fate just happened.
Yeah, fate just happened, and boom, boom, you just made like some like really great friends.
Yeah.
But like if we were able to figure that out in something that was not just a compressed 72-hour span, that's magical. Like that's what when we start thinking about like how do we make a better society, that's how we're going to do it. Now, there was this concept of the third space by a gentleman called Ray Oldenburg. Yeah. The third space, which is, for those of you who aren't familiar, so your first space is your home, your second space is your work. Your third space is supposed to be a social gathering space where you can interact with people and just be a greater part of like the broader social fabric of your society. And so like you can think of it as the old Main Street. Everybody would be like, oh, hey, Joe, you're back here for your bottle of soda or something like that, right? Like your daily bottle of soda, right? It's like Cheers, where everyone knows your name, right? That neighborhood bar, that neighborhood barber shop, that neighborhood butcher, that neighborhood plant lady, right? Like that sort of stuff. But we have largely erased that in favor of the Targets, the Costcos, the Walmarts of the world. Right.
I think a lot of it is efficiency now too, right? Like
yeah, absolutely. And like e-commerce had COVID definitely did not help, but like e-commerce, the rise of e-commerce has changed what Main Street USA is supposed to be. So when I was like thinking through that of like, okay, like how do I actually like get people to kind of come back together and interact? That's kind of where like this idea of like, oh, okay, like we can build that. Like if it existed before, it can exist again. That rabbit hole eventually led me to Gamers Heaven, which had been in business on the East Coast in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania for I guess now going into our 10th year. And so thinking about like the environment that they had created and like the Gen Z term of like the vibes that they're creating, right? Like that's the sort of thing that I wanted to bring to the Bay Area. And so that's kind of why we're building that in Santa Clara. So this way we can actually think through, okay, like how do we start to get people to interact on a regular basis? It should be okay that you come in and you can express your interests in a safe environment. There are so many different places that you can express your interests and it's not safe, so we might as well create one that is. We should create a world where like you can find those like lifelong friends without having to wait once a year to be able to interact with these people, right? Even in the Bay, there are some people who I will only see them at the convention that is also in the Bay. And it's like, no, like I want to be able to have that experience whenever it happens. So,
and even more than that too, I can imagine how like Gamers Heaven is a place where right now cons are a very like almost like one-off events. Like there are schedules, but it's like for a particular spot in California or anywhere in the world, right? There's like one AX that happens every year. It's a very like scheduled thing, right? And it's not a recurring theme, and kind of like how you were mentioning in your like when you were younger, right? Like you wanted an avenue to be able to have like the ability to enjoy anime that the way you did, because you said you like when you were younger you really liked watching that stuff, but you just didn't have friends to kind of hang out with you on partaking into that hobby. And if you only have like a con a year that you're able to go to, like that doesn't really last. So I can see how like it's a combination of both getting more and more instances of like these magical friendships happening, but also a safe space for those people that are interested in anime to actually have a space to be able to go and find friends in that realm without having to wait for like a con that takes place outside of the city, out of state. You have to spend a lot of money to go to.
Yeah.
I think it's super cool.
And it's interesting actually, and through like the almost 2 years that we've been kind of doing this thing, because as part of our activation, right, like we went to these shows and made a presence for ourselves and interacted with members of our community, right, because again, like this is more or less one of the few ways that we have the ability to reach people en masse. And so it's interesting to see all the different people that have like come up to us being like, we want the ability to be able to kind of like come in, hang out, enjoy people's company. And it's interesting to see the different types of people, right? Like some of it is like young 20-somethings who are in college and they just want to have a place to come and hang out. Some of them are like me, like old, like OG, like anime. Actually, I'm not even like OG anime. Like there are definitely animes like way earlier than me. But like thinking through, like, oh, like there's some people who like look back and they'd be like, man, like I wish I had this growing up.
Yeah.
But now that it's here, I want to be able to partake. And then you also have like some of the people who are. I had a gentleman come up to me at one of our events and was just like, I don't understand this anime thing, but I know that my daughter loves it. And so I want to support my daughter. I don't know how. Tell me how to help. It's like those moments. That's what we're working for. That's the stuff where it's like, no, like I want to be able to help this parent support their child, because like the parent has no idea what's going on. But like they were humble enough to come up and say, hey, I have no idea what's going on. Like, can you just let me know like which one I should get for my kid? They just want to be there to support. And like I love seeing that. The number of families that have come out, like it's just because it's becoming more of a mainstream thing. It's great to be able to like see these people kind of like interact with each other. Yeah. One thing that was actually interesting, right? Because again, Gamers Heaven as a brand is or actually the Pennsylvania store has been like open for like 9 some odd years. There was actually a show that I came out that was on the West Coast, that one of their customers happened to be in the Bay Area for that show, and they came up to me and they're like, hey, you don't know us, but we've been following you the entire time. And lo and behold, the kid that was there, actually he wasn't even a kid, he was 18. He was there at the Gamers Heaven on day 1. And like Andrew, the CEO, literally watched him grow up. It's wild because it's like when I talk to, like I send a picture of them, like I took a selfie with them and sent it back to like the Phoenixville team, and they're like, wait, is he going to college now? And like it's wild, right? Wow. Because like when you think about that, like the longevity of being able to see someone literally go from like elementary school all the way up to college. And then and beyond, like that's wild. There's this one gentleman in the Phoenixville store. Every time I go, actually, it's funny. I love this guy. I unfortunately his name escapes me at the moment, but every time I go, he will tell me 2 things. One, that they never have Diet Mountain Dew.
Oh no.
and 2, and that I should order Diet Mountain Dew. And 2, that he was the first person that held Andrew's child that like wasn't part of his family. That's what we're working for, right? Like that sense of like that sense of family and that sense of community. Like that's the sort of stuff that like I love seeing.
Do you feel like during your time, like either at Phoenixville with Andrew or during your time boothing, how often do you feel like these people are yearning for some sort of connection? Right, like how often do you feel like these people are looking for someone to kind of like hear them, or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's like an unspoken thing. you want to be surrounded, like the people that come in and come back are the people that want that sort of connection. And like you can see it that like sure, they may not necessarily be in every day,
Right.
but like when they're there, they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's like those are like the sorts of things that when we think about like the overall impact of gamers having, I mean like the overall impact of like just the work that we do, those are the things that keep us from saying like maybe like on like a random off day, right? Like we might just be like, oh man, like that was a rough day, and like we're like this was just like a rough project. But you'll have like those moments where you're just like, no, actually, like, yeah, sure, it was a rough day, but like someone was like we were able to help somebody.
We transformed a life potentially.
Yeah, we transformed a life.
Yeah.
We connected with somebody. Sure, like obviously like still bills to pay, but there is like almost like a second bottom line that we have to consider, and it's like the impact of like this sort of work on people's lives.
Have there been things that make it hard to kind of to build this thing or to kind of realize this vision?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think
yeah.
when we think about the word struggle, I think it might be a little too intense. I think everybody goes through challenges that they need to kind of work through. When I think about the thing that impacts me the most is that everyone's very excited, and you have to assume good intent when people come up and like ask about like, hey, like when's this gonna happen, because it's like as much as I would love to have it happen right now, there's a lot of things that have to go into it to make sure that this is like a sustainable enterprise, right? Like people will only get snippets of the progress. All of a sudden they're just be like, okay, so like why isn't it open tomorrow? And it's like, well, like I have to get permits from the city. I have to do XYZ. Like we have to find a place that's not going to completely destroy us on rent. There are so many different things that have to happen before we are ready to even have the conversation of like, is there a space that's ready? I appreciate like when people have that level of enthusiasm. And it's interesting to see the reactions when like we start explaining some of like hey, like there actually is some stuff that like prevents us from doing XYZ. And like when you think about like the stuff that we have to go through, a lot of it is planning, right? A lot of it is finding the right opportunity to do stuff. Because as much as I would love to just drop it down and just go, we don't want to be in a position where we operate for a year and then we fizzle out, right?
Yeah.
90% of businesses of like food services businesses fail within 2 years.
So like what kind of support do you usually have like when kind of building this this company, right? Or when establishing kind of like the foundation for this, like did you have good support from other folks that like did understand, or did you have people that try to understand you a little bit better? Like,
no,
what was that?
It's funny when you mention that, right? Like there are some challenges that are solely mine. There are some situations that are like very California specific. Like California is great at just creating rules that no other state has, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like so there's some things that I'll bring up to like the broader Gamers Heaven team, and they'll be like, oh, we've never faced that before. Like I just got to figure it out, right? But I think that through the process of doing all these shows, right? Like they're actually taking backtrack for a second, right? When you go to a convention, there are different types of attendees. There's the typical con goer, right? Like they're there to be entertained. Then there are those people who are going there to work, and like it's a very different convention experience for those who are going to work. Cool. And like there is a very different experience that for those people that come in, right? Like there's like a certain level of camaraderie that happens, right? Like if you see someone that's like hungover, you give them a bottle of water, right? Like it's like, oh shoot, like can you break a 10 because I need like some like pocket changes? Like yeah, sure, immediately, done. And I've met some great people along the way that have been like great support in terms of like some of the support that I need. Honestly, sometimes it just comes down to commiseration. It's like the Reddit, like, am I the a-hole, right? Like, like am I like, hey, like this situation came up, am I the jerk?
Yeah.
Like, and so it's been nice to be able to talk to people like across the industry, right? Like whether it's the anime stuff, whether it's like, oh hey, like this person has gone through lease negotiations before. Like what are some of the things that they learned, right?
Okay.
Or like, hey, like what are some of the things that like what insurance company do you use? Who's your tax accountant, right?
Right.
Like those sorts of questions. It's like you can't just ask like an average person. Like the
Right.
average person doesn't have the answer to that. So it's nice to be able to like talk to people and have that sort of like you have that group of people that like have that shared business experience that you can draw from. And one of my friends actually, it's funny actually, he runs a boba shop up in Connecticut. This buddy of mine, we went to college together, and so like we're starting our businesses like actually in two different coasts. And we took like different approaches to essentially like more or less like the same concept. But it's been nice to be able to talk to him about like, oh hey, like when you were planning for this equipment, which ones were you considering? Right. Yeah. And then on the flip side, when he talks to me, it's like, hey, when you're doing your pop-up events, how did you handle this, and that? It's actually been really nice to be able to talk to someone from like a completely different area of my life to be able to talk through those sorts of things.
Dang, that's actually pretty sick. Okay, cool. So I can see how these anime cons are amazing in the sense that it brings people from all walks of life. You can have people that are in that kind of similar walk with you to be able to kind of walk alongside you in a way. Well, not necessarily walking alongside you in your actual like business being created. They've walked that path before. They've tread that trail. They've like kind of trailblazed already, and they're able to kind of like give you the wisdom that is needed. And I imagine, do you end up kind of forming connections, partnerships with these people?
Yeah, like, I mean, like, some of them have been great. I think when I think about like, there's one guy that I go to whenever I have a question about e-commerce. He has it on lock, and he's really good at it. And like his products are also products that we would sell. And so like those like that sort of like symbiotic relationship. Like when I think about some of the close relationships that Gamers Heaven overall has made, right? Like our relationship with Schwa, there's a lot of note sharing about like how we can like make ourselves better. Like we come from like a place of like pretty strong content creation. Not myself, but mostly Andrew. And they have product production down to a science. Like they make everything. And so like when we think about like our growth together, right? Like those are like the sorts of things where it's like, okay, like we're kind of tying the boats together. So this way we can kind of like survive these ups and downs of business. There's like the overall macro ups and downs. And then there's like the micro stuff that like is usually just like very individual to the business, right? But the macro ups and downs, like there are some businesses that will get swept away. But if you can survive the macro stuff and keep your micro stuff to a minimum, then you should be good.
So it's kind of like the rising tide lifts all ships kind of
thing.
Yeah.
So it's like you saw that post-COVID when like everyone had their stimulus checks, there were riches to be made. And this year we're in a situation where like there's like fair economic uncertainty, right? Like there's fair amount of like political uncertainty as well. And so with that comes like a lot of angst that manifests in like the way people spend. The ability for businesses to survive these sorts of like ups and downs in the macroeconomic environment is really important to get right. And the way you do that is through either partnerships or securing your own boat. The partnerships that we make are the things that help us survive.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. It's also a nice way just for everyone we're all in this together. Kind of thing. Like no one's really out for bad blood. No one's really competing with each other. It's a lot more of your success is my success, which I think is a really nice shared.
Yeah.
Like a shared goal to bring to the anime community something that you feel like is worth or valuable for the community.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. I think it's awesome that it's not just that the attendees, or it's not just that Gamers Heaven is trying to help the attendees feel like they have a place to belong, but you're also working with other small business owners to try to help them in a sense like feel cohesive and feel seen, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. I really admire that vision, man.
Yeah.
It's
a good time.
Yeah. Before we end, I just wanted to see if you had any other thoughts, any other final things that you wanted to share to the audience or to me.
No, I think honestly this was a ton of fun. I really appreciate being able to think critically about like the world that we're in. Frankly, we don't take enough time to kind of think through the why of like what happens around us. So I actually do appreciate the fact that we're able to kind of sit down and think through like how we get to certain places, why we do certain things. And I'm excited to see like the next episodes.
Yeah, like what's the drive behind what we do, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that, kind of like you were mentioning, is it all goes back down to like how you feel that the people matter. These people that love anime, you want to be able to change their lives because you feel like they matter a lot. So and it sounds like that was kind of like the thing that kept you going amidst all the hardships of finding a place, amidst like the COVID downturn and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So more props to you, man. I am super excited for the Santa Clara Bay Area Gamers Heaven charter, and I'll be first in line whenever that thing opens up.
Yeah,
so,
let's do it.
Cool. Awesome. Appreciate you, Dennis. Thanks for coming on to the podcast. This was a very fun experience for me to kind of like learn a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes of small business ownership, of the creation of it, of the maintenance of it, and all the things kind of tied to that. And yeah, looking forward to seeing more from you. And with that, that's the end of the episode, guys. Well, hope you guys enjoyed that. If you like what you're hearing, if you want to see me improve in my craft, because this is my first ever episode, would love if you wanted to subscribe or just wait to hear a little bit more. The idea is that the future episodes will tackle other various members of the community. So maybe the photographer, like we mentioned before, we had a little bit of that. Maybe just the regular con goer, someone like me that came in that doesn't really know what this whole anime thing's about, but can go from their experience on why they wanted to, take a step out of their comfort zone and attend these cons. So if you like the content that you hear, if you want to learn a little bit more about people in anime, people in the online community, feel free to stay tuned and more will come to you shortly. Awesome. Well, again, thank you.
Cool.